Hello, hello, hello. How goes it, everyone? Welcome back to the live chat. Benji-Sales here. Of course, as many of you know, for those of you that might be joining for the first time, basically the way the live chat works, drop any questions you want into the chat. We're here to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'll answer whatever I can, address whatever I can, and make lot of news to break down and talk about. We have tons of delays from 2020, early 2020. I mean, it seems like almost everything is getting pushed back. We can talk about that, what games it might affect, what games it's good for, what games it hurts maybe, and the reasoning behind some of these delays. There's that to talk about. NPD data for the US just came out for the month of December, so we have holiday sales we can talk about. A lot there. Horizon Zero Dawn coming to PC, what it means for PlayStation, what it means, going forward. Is this a one-off, or is Sony going to pursue this more? There's just a lot, right? There is a lot of news to break down and talk about. Can everyone let me know? Can you hear me well in the chat? I just want to make sure my audio setup is good and going. Hello, everyone. We've got Elias Stapleton. Hey, good to see you. We got Ruger. What's up? We got Wound Up, of course, as always. What's up, Wound Up? Start dropping those questions in the chat. If anyone has anything you want to talk about, whatever the biggest news is to you, whatever you think we need to break down. Cool. Looks like Ruger's saying audio is good. All right. So let's just dive into the delays, right? Because I think that's kind of a big talking point. So I'm going to start with that. I'm just going to give you my quick thought ideas, and if you have more questions about the delays, I'll address them, of course. But here's my first few quick thoughts. First of all, it's crazy how many have been delayed. We just got another one announced today that Iron Man VR is now delayed as well. So there's just another to add to the batch. It happened a little while ago, but The Last of Us Part 2 was a delay for the early part of the year. We have the Avengers delayed. We have Cyberpunk 2077 delayed. We have Final Fantasy VII Remake delayed. I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy delay season. And I've seen some people wondering, is it one game that's causing this and it's pushing another one, and then they push off further back? I don't think that's really the case for most of these. I think the vast majority of these delays have to do with internal development. I don't think it's necessarily because of a crowded window or anything like that, mainly because games like Cyberpunk, for example, they were pushed off a lot. I mean, we're talking like 5-month delay. Same thing with like Avengers. You don't push that far off because you think a schedule's too crowded, right? You might push off, a month or two or something like that, but you don't go 5-month delays unless, it's an internal issue with the game. I'm not trying to say Cyberpunk or Avengers is in a bad spot, but clearly, they think they need more time to put the quality. So I don't think it's a case of the window being too crowded that's causing these delays. Just, these big AAA games that they're trying to delay to make sure quality. So that's my first quick, hit thoughts on that. I thought it was good at first when we had like 1 or 2 games delayed because I thought, okay, we are spacing out. So in the end, this is a good thing for sales. But now we've had so many delayed that it's like, wow, this is kind of crazy, right? I don't know if it's good or bad now. Actually, I think it might be kind of bad how many games have been delayed now, because it's really going to affect like Q1 and Q2 sales are going to be pretty rough humps, I think, now. All right, cool. We got some questions dropping in, so I'm going to go ahead and start hitting those. Elias Stapleton here. First question. 1, I think Horizon Zero Dawn coming to PC is something that the own PlayStation have been cooking inside since a long time ago. Sean Layden, former PS, said some IPs have to go to PC for more audience. And then Jim Ryan said that they don't want to devalue the first-party games of PlayStation, taking these games to a subscription or something like that day one. Do you think all PlayStation exclusives are going to PC day one? Good question. And this has been a hot button topic. So here's my thoughts on the whole PlayStation PC thing that's going on. A lot of people are forgetting that PlayStation actually already has an announced first-party game that's being developed that's going to PC, and that is Predator, right? So a lot of people aren't even really talking about that. But Horizon going to PC, I think, is more shocking because it's not a multiplayer game. It's a single-player, massive IP from Sony first party, right? Predator is a licensed IP. And this is like a flagship PlayStation game. So I think that's what's kind of causing this like, crazy reaction online to it. Now, I think it's kind of foolish to think that this would be a one-off situation, right? That Sony would just randomly put a massive, massive exclusive like Horizon on PC and just you'll never see anything else again. That does not make any sense to me why you would do that. Just one random exclusive. So I do expect to see more PlayStation IP move to PC if Horizon does well. I think Horizon's kind of like a test because it's built on the Decima engine, and we already know Death Stranding, which is also built on that engine's coming to PC. So I think, this is kind of a test run for Sony. Let's see how it does. Let's see what kind of impact it has. Does it sell a ton of units on PC? Is this a huge success story? I think this is more of a test run. I think they have more planned in the pipeline. But if this like just does not go well for them at all, it gets bad media backlash. It's not a big seller. You might see them hold off on some of those plans. But yes, I do expect you'll see more PlayStation games hitting PC, but I don't think it's going to be everything day one, because that's the other thing I'm seeing. I'm seeing like two trains of thoughts from some people. Some people, panicking, thinking, what's the point of me buying a PlayStation 5 if all of the Sony first party games are just going to come straight to PC? And then I'm seeing the other hand of somewhat denial, to be honest, of people thinking like, oh, this is never going to happen again. It's just a random old exclusive going to PC. I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle, I think. I don't expect all of PlayStation first party games day one. You can just go out and get it on PC. You don't need a PlayStation 5. I don't think that's the direction Sony's going. What I think their plan is to, on a case-by-case basis, as a game, let's say maybe is on PlayStation 5 for like a year or something like that, whenever they think they've really gotten the momentum out of it that they can on the console, right? And maybe sales start slowing, maybe, price drops start coming into effect. I think they're looking at PC as a way to capture more revenue, to generate more money for their games, because game development is not cheap now, let alone next gen, when we're using even higher quality assets, when gamers are going to demand even larger, more complex worlds, right? It's going to take a serious investment. So I think that's this is a guess. I don't have inside info on this, but just reading the tea leaves, if you will, the way I see this is PlayStation is planning on bringing some of their games to PC. It's going to be good for their long-term sales, but I don't think you're going to see like, whatever, let's say Horizon Zero Dawn 2, whatever it ends up being called. I'd be surprised if you see that announced for PlayStation 5 and PC day one. That would surprise me. I don't think they're going to go that route. Now, maybe a year after Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is out, maybe then you hear them announce it for PC. That will not surprise me. My guess is that's the direction they're going. All right, awesome. So now we got more questions. Let's dive in. Audio is good. Hearing you fine. Video resolution is low. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's my basement. It just sucks. It totally sucks. I need to relocate my computer, but I hope you can see me. Alex Bailey, any further insight on Nintendo's hardware or software performance other than what NPD detailed? So, I kind of got to be careful what I talk about with NPD. I can't talk about anything that is NDA material. I'm not in any rush to get, NPD after me and to have them watching everything I do, because it's not a good spot to be in. So, all I can do is give general thoughts on that, Alex. Good results for Switch. The most impressive result for Nintendo by far is Luigi's Mansion 3. Anyone that's been following my live chats or my Twitter would see that I had been mentioning that Luigi's Mansion 3, I from what data I could see, was outperforming Pokemon on an individual basis, and also outperforming games like Mario Kart, which actually ended up being true. So I was, very spot on that for the data I was seeing. And I think that's kind of surprising, right? Don't get me wrong, Luigi's Mansion is an awesome game. I haven't played it yet, but I hear good things. And Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was a strong seller, but I don't know that any of us, myself included, expected, this game to be the number one Switch game of the holidays. Did any of us see that coming? I don't think we saw that. Of course, Pokemon's going to be ahead of Luigi whenever you count double pack, when you count Sword and Shield, but I'm just talking about like an individual SKU. I don't think we expected Luigi's Mansion 3 to place that high. It was December is the Nintendo month, right? Like, Traditionally, throughout all of history, Nintendo does well throughout the whole year, but December is Nintendo country, right? They just do amazing in December. And so for Nintendo's biggest month of the year, the number one Switch game, Luigi's Mansion 3, that's just wild. That's an insane performance. It's going to sell over 10 million. The question now is, how much higher over 10 million are we talking? Is this going to go to 15 million? Hard to say something like that. We need to see how legs go next year as well, but it's definitely going to be a 10 million seller. Pokemon's doing really good too. Sword and Shield are doing very strong. Still continuing to outpace previous franchises, our entries in the franchise. So it was a great month for Nintendo. Unfortunately, Alex, I can't talk about the NDA stuff because, that's just going to get me in trouble. So I can't go there. But that's my kind of my thoughts on Nintendo. The most impressive thing is Luigi. Bruby here first, and I guess one of the biggest questions was Switch up in December too. Did Matt talk about that publicly? I need to know what Matt said. I'll look into that. I can't. I got to be careful. NPD is cracking down. Let me say that. NPD is cracking down on anything. Ruger, that Final Fantasy VII remake delay right next to Cyberpunk really scared me. Ooh, how do you feel about the new date? Will Final Fantasy VII remake cannibalize some of Resident Evil 3 remake sales, just like Cyberpunk would have done to Final Fantasy remake before it got delayed? Good question. And this was something that I tweeted about that some people took exception to. I had mentioned that Cyberpunk is outpacing Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Whenever Final Fantasy VII was first delayed, a big talking point was who does this hurt? Is this hurt Final Fantasy? Does this hurt Cyberpunk? Does it hurt both? Does it hurt neither? And I had mentioned, Cyberpunk's tracking to be the bigger game. So if anyone was to be hurt, I thought it would be Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I think some people thought that was me saying, I didn't think Final Fantasy VII Remake was going to do well or something like that. No. Don't misunderstand me. Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to do exceptionally well. The difference being Cyberpunk is tracking like a I don't want to necessarily say like a Grand Theft Auto, but we're talking like a Red Dead, like a 15, 20 million unit seller. Cyberpunk's tracking like a monster. Whereas Final Fantasy VII Remake is tracking like a darn good performance, like very good, but not a monster like that. So if anything was going to be hurt by it, I thought it might be Final Fantasy VII, especially because they're both probably going to be pretty long games, right? We don't necessarily know how long remake's going to be. Cyberpunk, if it's anything like The Witcher, we're probably, or CD Projekt's other games, we're probably looking at 50, 60, 70 hours depending on what you how much you play. Final Fantasy VII Remake, we don't know the exact length, but it's probably going to be pretty long. So that was one thing that slightly worried me. 2 RPGs right next to each other, but Cyberpunk's delayed now, so we don't even have to worry about that anymore. They both have tons of space. I think it's good for Final Fantasy. We'll have to wait and see how it is for Cyberpunk because we don't know what else really is in September yet. We know a couple things, but that's so far off. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, Cyberpunk getting delayed is very good for it. In terms of Resident Evil 3, I don't think Final Fantasy VII is going to cannibalize it. They're very different games, right? I think Final Fantasy and Cyberpunk was a bit more of an issue because they were both RPGs. Granted, very different RPGs. Cyberpunk is like a Western style first person RPG. Final Fantasy VII is of course a JRPG. So they were very different, but they're both RPGs. So I do think there's some overlap in that audience there. Resident Evil 3 and Final Fantasy VII, while they're both big games, they're both very close to each other. They're just like completely different styles. So I don't think actually either one will be hurt that bad by being as close as they are to each other. I think both will be successes personally. All right. Wound up. If Horizon Zero Dawn goes to PC, then it's pretty obvious that Horizon Zero Dawn 2 and probably all Sony first-party games going forward. I'm wondering, as a consumer, what incentive I have to buy a PS5. All right, wound up. Yep, I kind of answered that. And my thought is I agree with you that I think you'll see definitely more PlayStation IP hitting PC. There's rumors out there that Dreams is coming to PC. If you remember, Cory Barlog tweeted a while ago that he would love God of War to be on PC. Like, that is from the creator's mouth that he wants it on PC. So I do think you'll see more. I don't think, though, like I said, wound up, I'd be shocked if PS5 big exclusives are day one on PC. That would surprise me. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Sony wants to move those PlayStations, and what better way to move a PS5 than Horizon Zero Dawn 2 and things like that. I did mention in another tweet that, PC and console are different ecosystems, but there is some overlap. So I don't think it would necessarily be the end of the world, if Horizon Zero Dawn 2, for example, was day one on PC. But I think Sony wants all that focus on the PlayStation 5 at launch. So I think they'll be later. I think they'll come later. I don't know that they'll be 3 years like Horizon is now, but probably like a year or something like that. DMV fan. More or less confidence in Avengers after the delay? DMV fan, more. I'm more confident in Avengers now after the delay because I think it needed it. I haven't been super impressed by. I'm excited for it. I love Avengers. I'm a Marvel fan. I'm a comic book fan. But what they're showing, something felt weird about it, right? We had talked about this on a previous live chat. Some of the marketing just felt kind of strange on that one. So I think the delay is good for it personally. WTFO Oliver. How much more significant is it, if any, when a game gets delayed out of the current fiscal year? Good question. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal, especially to the publishers. So make no mistake, when a game gets delayed out of a fiscal year, I mean, it's a big decision, right? That clearly means that they really feel the game needs work, right? It really, because it's a big deal. If a game is scheduled to come out, let's say at the beginning of a fiscal year, it's much easier to delay it, further into that fiscal year, right? To push it off for, let's say it's the very beginning of the year and you push it off 6 months. It might hurt that quarter, but your year is still, still good, still going to come out. To push it to a whole nother fiscal year, so that means that they're reporting for this year is now going to be missing a gigantic release that they originally planned on being in the fiscal year. That hurts, the viewpoint of shareholders, things like that. So it's a big decision. If you see a company push a game completely out of a fiscal year, they really felt, it needed work. Like it was of vital importance. All right. Death Star. How much do you think Sword and Shield is sold by now? Ooh, good question. So we know Japan, just physical, is over 3 million, right? Just Japan is over 3. It's going to pass Smash very, very soon to be the highest selling Switch game in terms of physical copies in Japan. That's not counting digital. So with digital, we're way over 3 million. We know the US is millions. We know Europe is millions. It's tough to put an exact number on it because out of Europe, there's a lot of reporting that doesn't get made public, but man, it's got to be high. It's got to be, I don't know. I mean, let me think. Just US and Japan is probably over, just between those two markets, you're probably looking 7-8 million just between those two. So, I mean, dude, it could be over 10, it just depends on how Europe's doing. But if Japan's somewhere between 3 and 4 million, if the US is around 4 million-ish, give or take, it's hard to tell again with US because you don't have digital numbers. NPD, Nintendo doesn't share any of it with NPD. So we could be looking at over 10 million. It's very possible it's already over 10 million, like by quite a bit. Sold through, not shipped. It could be over 10 million sold through. All right. Super Peach Boy, here we go. Death Stranding. Let's talk about it. I had a tweet today kind of blowing up about it. Is Death Stranding truly a flop? Good question. Hard to judge. So I will say I feel 100% confident saying Death Stranding, from my perspective, is an underperformance. I feel very confident saying that. And, I mean, to miss top 20 in your second month, granted, it's December, right? It's a big month. It's a huge month. It's Nintendo territory, right? But Nintendo doesn't share digital sales, and Death Stranding included digital sales in NPD, and it missed top 20 completely. Wasn't in the top 20 at all, and it was down to number 8 on the PlayStation only chart, and it was behind games like Need for Speed Heat, which Need for Speed Heat's actually been doing pretty well, right? It's been doing actually better, I think, than some people realize, but still, for a flagship exclusive game, in the second month to fall that much. That's not a good sign. We've seen similar things in Europe where it's pretty much disappeared off the charts. We've seen similar things in Japan where, again, it's pretty much disappeared off the charts. That game was extremely front-loaded. You know, I tweeted it might end up the most front-loaded PlayStation funded game of this generation. And someone commented and they said even more than the Order. That's a good point. I wasn't even really thinking about the Order. So maybe the Order ends up more front loaded. But it's going to be close, right? It's either going to be the Order or Death Stranding. I really can't think of another PlayStation funded flagship game that was this front loaded. Don't forget, December, it was actually also on sale at times. So it got some sales, like in terms of like price drops to help move units, and it still missed top 20. That's not a great showing. I don't know if we can call it a flop because we have literally no idea what the budget is, like none. We have no concept of how much that game cost. You know, we don't know the marketing. We don't know Sony's expectations. So to call it a flop, I won't go that far just because I don't know. But in terms of underperforming, yes, I definitely think Death Stranding is underperforming. I do think so, which will make interesting to see, you know, what happens with Kojima Productions next. You know, I don't think they're in any danger of being closed or anything like that. So don't take anything like that away from it. But I do think, I think whatever Kojima makes next maybe needs to be a little bit more mainstream. I hate to say that. I love, you know, weird stuff. I love Death Stranding. I enjoyed it. And I think he can still do some weird stuff, but he probably needs to make his game a little bit more accessible to your average gamer, because Death Stranding doesn't seem to have clicked. Ruger, when it comes to PS4 Cyberpunk pre-orders versus Final Fantasy VII pre-orders, I know that you said Cyberpunk is outpacing Final Fantasy VII. I know you can't give specific numbers, but is it outpacing Final Fantasy VII by a lot? Okay, good question. I can only comment on what I see. Can't comment on anything, but I feel pretty confident in what I've seen that it is outpacing it. I wouldn't say by like a huge margin, especially because Final Fantasy VII was originally slated earlier, and it had been seeing a bit of a ramp up lately. It had been climbing again because we were getting closer to the release date, but now that's been pushed back a little bit. It's still quite a bit before Cyberpunk. I would expect with Cyberpunk's delay, pre-orders to slow significantly because you have a lot longer before that game comes out now, right? You're looking at like 8 or 9 months before it comes out, right? It's September. So you got a long way. So pre-orders are probably going to slow down quite a bit for Cyberpunk. So it was ahead on PS4, but not by like this huge margin. So I suspect that's going to change. I suspect over the coming weeks, Final Fantasy VII will now be outpacing Cyberpunk on PlayStation 4. Wound up. I already have a modest gaming PC, so buying a PS5 seems like it's not a good option for me. Here's interesting. Sorry, I scrolled down too far past it. Not a good option for me if it becomes essentially a timed exclusive box. I hope Sony are upfront about their plans. I agree with you on that they need to be upfront about this. Sony, whenever they do finally comment on Horizon on PC and maybe Dreams on PC and whatever, you know, else that their plans are about that, they need to be upfront and honest. You know, Sony has been, a lot of PlayStation fans have been a bit upset about how they feel Sony might be a little bit quiet right now, right? Like that Sony might be just not communicating the way they did in the past. And I think they do need to be upfront about this. I don't think it's the end of the world that Sony first-party games go to PC, but here's the thing. If every single game were in limbo where it's like, is this going to come to PC? Is it not going to? At least Microsoft, however you feel about, you know, their direction, at least they just flat out say like, yo, all first party Microsoft games are console and PC now. Like that's just the way it is. All of our games are going to be on console and PC first party, at 99% at least. Maybe there's going to be some random weird case scenario, but basically everything that they make, Xbox and PC. Sony, we just don't know. It's an unknown how they're approaching this. So I don't know that Sony themselves actually 100% know yet. That's why I said I think Horizon's a bit of a test. But I agree with you, Wound Up. They need to be upfront. Sony needs to clearly communicate the direction they're headed with this initiative. All right. Hans Morshek, do you think Sony can repeat the success of the PS4 with PS5 hardware numbers, or is the market changing to a platform agnostic one with PS games on PC, and we'll probably not see 100 million plus sales anymore? I do think PlayStation 5 is actually probably going to repeat. I think it's very possible PS5 is another 100 million sold console, and there's a reason for that. Like I said, PC and console, while there is overlap, there's still a lot of variance in those markets, right? Some people just like being on a console for the simplicity of it. You just put a disc in, you're done. Some people like the freedom that the PC platform gives you, right? You can pick what launcher you want. You can pick what hardware you want. You can change your settings. They're very different. I think at the end of the day, you might see some people not buy a console and go the PC route. But at the end of the day, I just still think they're very different experiences. I think, you're not going to lose that really casual gamer that just does not understand the PC, even though PC is not like super complex. But again, a lot of people that play games, they're buying Madden, they're buying Call of Duty, and maybe like one other game a year, like maybe. So for that kind of person, they're not going to go out and build a PC, right? They're just not going to happen. They're going to buy a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, and they're going to put their Madden in it or their Call of Duty and just play it from there. So you still have a huge chunk of the market that is going to always be, at least for the foreseeable future, invested in the console space. So I don't think it's the end of the world for consoles. You might see some really hardcore gamers, people that really know what they're doing. You might see a little bit of those shift to PC away from console if this, platform agnostic future keeps happening. But I do think that console sales will still be very strong, for the foreseeable future. Ricardo Diaz. Now with Final Fantasy VII delayed, Doom is going to smash. Good call, Ricardo. I was actually going to talk about this. This is one thing I was thinking about, whenever I was setting the stream up. Man, if anyone makes out good from these delays, it's 2 games, Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing. I thought both were going to do well anyways, right? Animal Crossing's, of course, going to be a juggernaut. There's just literally no way around it. It's going to be a monster. And Doom Eternal, I've always thought was going to do really good. I think it's going to be the best-selling Bethesda game in at least the last 3 years. Since 2016, if you look at what they've released, I'd be shocked if Doom Eternal didn't outsell everything that they've released in the last 3 years. So I was already expecting good things for those two, but man, did it just open up like completely for those 2 titles. So if anyone made out good from these delays, it's Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing. Those games, it's wide open for them now. Elias Stapleton, do you think Bloodborne, The Order 1886 are going to have sequels? Ooh, don't know Knack, but Bloodborne was super successful and one of the best games of the gen. And I think it will take time because Demon Souls is almost confirmed. And Colin, okay, yeah. So I've talked about this before. Order, I don't see happening, even though I liked the world of The Order. I thought it was actually a really cool universe they set up. And I thought that a sequel could fix a lot of the problems and be a pretty awesome game. I think Sony might just look at that brand as tarnished. The Order just did not do well. There's just no way around it. It didn't perform well. So I think that brand might be tarnished, though I'd love it. If they announced The Order 1887 or whatever, I'd be totally down. I would love to play a sequel to that, even though the first did have a lot of problems. I just liked the world that they built. So I would say The Order is probably pretty low odds. Bloodborne, I've talked about this on a previous chat. I do think it's going to happen, and my bet is it's going to be Japan Studio that makes that game. I don't actually think it's going to be From Software. I think From might help on it, but I think From is so busy right now. You got to think that there's going to be a Sekiro sequel. The game performed amazing, and it won Game of the Year. I mean, that's huge. So you got to think at some point in the future that's going to happen. You have Elden Ring that they're building right now. I just think From is like super busy with their own IP right now because Bloodborne's actually owned by Sony. They actually own that IP, not From. So I think From is kind of busy. My guess is a Bloodborne sequel is going to happen. I think Japan Studio will probably make it, and I think From will help in like an advisory role, right? I do think that they'll be involved. My guess is just that, From will not be the lead dev. I think they're just going to be more assisting with the vision of Bloodborne 2. Just a guess. All right. Adam, with Microsoft saying no next-gen exclusives for a year or two, do you think Lockhart is still a thing? Not sure the point of a low-cost entry-level next-gen console without next-gen only games. Good question, Adam. I do think Lockhart is still coming. I think Lockhart, though, is probably not maybe as ready as Series X is. Series X is what they're talking about. They're advertising it. We've already seen the box. They've already actually given us a lot of info on the Series X. There's still some stuff we don't know, but they've kind of put a lot out there already. I think Lockhart is actually still being worked on. So I actually don't know if Lockhart is going to come out at launch. I think it might, but I'm wondering now if at launch, it's just going to be the Series X and maybe the Lockhart's a year or two later as they still kind of figure out exactly where this box is going to be, because they've announced, right, that Xbox One is still going to get these games. So I think that actually gives them time to work on Lockhart, because Series X is your big flagship, cutting edge console. We don't know, but there's rumors it might even be more powerful than PlayStation 5. So this could be like the most powerful console in the market. We don't know. I'm not saying for sure, but it could be. And but their games are still going to come to Xbox One, at least for the first year or two. So we have that entry level model still there in the Xbox One. So I'm wondering if Lockhart now is a bit further off. I still think it's a thing, but I'm wondering if it's not at launch now. I'm really wondering that, if that's maybe a year or two later than the Series X. All right. Carnage Ghost. Hello, Benju. What up? Do you think all game delays are for next-gen enhancements? Some of them. So I tweeted about this, and some people are like, do you really think Cyberpunk is day one going to have, enhancements? Because we know these consoles are backwards compatible, right? So at the very least, you'll be able to play Cyberpunk on it. CD Projekt Red came out and said their focus right now is on the current gen versions. But yes, I definitely think they're going to have next-gen enhancements. Maybe they're not going to be like crazy enhancements, but let's think about this. The PC version is already going to be better than the PS4 and Xbox One version. Like, they've already made those assets. They've already made the higher end assets. They're making that. So, I mean, really, you could just it'll take a little bit of work, but you could just take the high end PC components, assets, shadow quality, whatever, it's going to be best at the highest end PC settings. And that can just be your PS5 and Xbox Series X enhancements. You know what I mean? So definitely, I think a lot of these delays are going to have enhancements. So yeah, I would think so. Burby. Oh, NPD, that brutal. Matt says nothing about that. So say better nothing, keep safe. Yeah, Burby, I got to be careful with that stuff. I wish I could tell you everything, right? You know me. I wish all sales data was public, but got to be careful what you say. Arkham Knight Hero, what's up? Since it's official now that Sony is skipping E3 again, do you think E3 is dying? Could third-party publishers follow suit? Good question. So I was actually going to apply for a one quick thing. So it's 1:52 now. I actually have to go at where I live Central. I have to leave in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to do about 10 more minutes of the stream. I got to get ready for work. I got to go to work today. So sorry about that. Just sorry for the derail. I've got about 10 more minutes here. So Arkham Knight. I was actually planning on trying to get a press pass for E3 this year because I thought Sony was definitely going to come back, since this was, this was next gen, right? This is it. This is the E3 before next gen. So for Sony to bow out, Microsoft's still going to be there. Third parties are still going to be there, but that is a big blow. So I actually don't even know if I'm going to apply for a press pass anymore, because it depends. If Sony is going to do their own standalone event, which I'm thinking we all think is probably still going to happen, I don't know. I don't know if I'm still going to apply for a press pass, because, I don't work for any media conglomerates. I don't work for IGN or someone like that. So none of my stuff would be paid for, right? I'd have to book my own hotel. I'd have to pay for all of that. I'd have to pay for travel. It would all be out of my own pocket. I definitely was going to really try to get out there if it was going to be everyone. If, we're going to have PlayStation there, if we're going to have Xbox there. Xbox is still going to be there, so it still might be worth going out, but I don't know. E3 is in a weird spot, and I don't think that them leaking all the data for journalists last year helped in any way. I think that actually hurt them more than some people think, people's trust in the ESA. So I don't know if we can say it's dead, but I would say it's probably in trouble. VIVFTP. Hi, Benji. Any thoughts on potential Sony acquisitions? We heard everything from Bluepoint and Remedy all the way up to ZeniMax. What do I say here? What do I say? Gotta be careful what I say here. Here's what I'll say. Maybe the ZeniMax rumor sounds crazy. Maybe it is crazy. I can tell you, I've heard, and I'll give zero more info on this, but that ZeniMax has looked before for Bethesda and such to be acquired. Not going to say anything else. Boop. Don't know if it's Sony. Don't know even if anyone is, but they've shopped before. It has been shopped before. Not going to say anything else. That's it. Real Attack. Nice. My boy Benji is back. What up? Wound Up Penguin. Didn't Nintendo announce that Sword and Shield sold 6 mil in the first 3 days? They might have. I'd have to go back and look. So yeah, it's probably over 10 million. Like I said, I have no idea what Europe's at. So, I mean, Europe was probably huge. So yeah, it could be way over 10 million right now. When I was giving like, who knows, maybe it's over 10 million. That was like a pretty random guesstimate, just basically using US and Japan, as my main points of focus, because we have Japan's numbers and I have some of US's numbers. So, I mean, it could be way over that. I don't know. I'm just saying could be way over. Wound Up, don't forget to hit that like button. Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. If you want to give me a like, I will definitely take it. It does help out me and the channel a lot. So I definitely won't say no to the likes. Real Attack, do you think that the legs of new games on Switch benefit from the high old Switch game prices? Death Stranding, for example, has to compete against the games on sale. Interesting question. So Nintendo games, as we know, pretty much like never cut price, like ever. Like it's very rare, right? For their flagship games, you're seeing it a little bit. Breath of the Wild you could find for like $49.99 at some places. Mario Odyssey you could find, but again, we're talking like $10 off, and not like $30 off. There was like a few crazy fire sales that did hit those kind of numbers, but most of the places you could get the flagship Nintendo games, yeah, you didn't get them heavily discounted. So there is an argument that I know. Sorry, I was distracted. There's an argument to be made that Nintendo games show strong legs because people know they're not going to ever go on sale, or if they are, it's not going to be much. So that pricing necessarily doesn't really impact their sales. You're going to buy a Nintendo game at $60 a lot of the time because you're like, do I wait 2 years for this game to hit $40 or $50? No, I'll just buy it at 60 now because I'm not going to wait that long. Whereas, like you said, Death Stranding has to compete with PlayStation and Xbox games that drop price much more rapidly. So, people, I think, feel a lot safer waiting on some PlayStation and Xbox games because they know it'll go down. Whereas Nintendo, there's almost no point in waiting. You're not going to save that much. And if you are going to save that much on a Nintendo game, you're going to have to wait a long time to save a lot of money. Ruger, I'm not sure if you were tracking Final Fantasy 15 before its release, but I'm curious about how Final Fantasy 7 is tracking compared to 15. Good question, Ruger. So my visibility to gaming market has expanded significantly, especially in the past year, since my Twitter, because my Twitter has, given me a lot of contacts, a lot of contacts at developers, at publishers, at, all over the place. So my visibility is definitely a lot higher than it used to be. It used to be I had a couple contacts, in the retail space, and that was just about it. And it was all NDA material. So I was doing a lot of guesstimates. I still do some of that. But if you notice, I've been fortunate this last year, my predictions for the most part, of course, there's still going to be a few misses, with sales. It's hard to know for sure, but they've been very strong and accurate this year. And part of that is because I have way more visibility. So it's harder for me to compare what I see now to what I saw, 3-4 years ago, because I'm just seeing different data. So it's hard for me to directly say how 7 is doing compared to 15 because I see more of 7 than I did of 15. But I think it's going to be bigger. I do think so. I think there's a very strong chance, at least out the gate. I think at launch, there's a very good chance Final Fantasy 7 is bigger than 15. We'll have to see legs-wise, right? JRPGs aren't known for outstanding legs, but, they're not. Final Fantasy 15 actually, by JRPG standards, had decent legs. So it's hard to say for sure right now, but I think as a guess from what I see, I do think that 7's probably going to launch bigger, like first month, probably bigger than 15. Aaron Buckley, Persona 5 Royal feels like it's been forgotten and being a sandwich in between games like Animal Crossing, Resident Evil. Yeah, I've talked about expecting a ton out of Persona 5 Royal in the West. Could be wrong on that. I think it might do okay, but I think you're gonna have a harder sell selling that at full price in the West than you did in Japan. Just personally, I don't think it's going to be a flop, but I'm not expecting it to be like this huge breakout. Persona 5 by itself, like the regular game, sold a ton, and it can be found for fairly cheap now. So a full price $60 for that. Ooh, I think it might not be a huge hit in the West. The Arkham Knight Hero, how much time do I got? Couple minutes. We're on the last couple minutes. I'll answer as many more of these as I can in rapid succession, and then I got to go. Arkham Knight Hero. Do you think Monolith Production will make a Shadow of War sequel, release it this year? Great question. Who knows what Monolith's up to? I actually don't know what they're up to. Whatever they are up to, though, I would expect an announcement soon. So whether that's a follow-up to, in the Middle Earth, war saga, or whether it's something else, I suspect it's probably a Lord of the Rings game, but I don't know for sure if it's going to be set in that, continuation of the Middle Earth series. But whatever it is, they're due, right? They're due for an announcement. So I would think this year, 2020, you'll definitely hear them, I think, announce their game. Not for sure if it comes out this year, but announced. My Scar. Hope no one already asked this. Do you think that Cyberpunk will hurt Avengers? Ooh. Also, happy to watch another stream. What's up? What's up? Cyberpunk is big enough. I think it's going to hurt anything near it. Honestly, I think it's that kind of game. Like, if you're right next to it, like within a week of it, I think you're going to be hurt. Yeah. So let's see. They're pretty close. Maybe it won't, but I think Cyberpunk's big enough. You kind of get out of the way of that a little bit, right? Remember when Red Dead 2 moved and then you saw a whole bunch of other games move out of its way? I would do the same for Cyberpunk. If I was releasing a game, I would not release within a week of it. I think that's a huge mistake. Ricardo, how's The Last of Us 2 charting? Record level pre-orders from what I can see for a PlayStation exclusive. I think it might be a record breaker. It's going to be close. It and Spider-Man's going to be, fun to watch. It's going to be a fun race. Tasty Zero. Hi, Benji. Happy to finally catch one of your streams live. What's up, Tasty? Welcome to the live stream. Love to hear your thoughts on the industry. Keep up the good work. Awesome. I appreciate it. Anthony, Alan, may I still play Ghost Recon? I'm out of my league up in here. Arkham Knight. Could Sly 5 be revived after all these platformers? Sly's a good question. I don't think so. Could be wrong. I don't think Sly 5's in development. I just don't think so. Ricardo, I think Neo 2 should be delayed. Neo 2 feels kind of... Right, that does feel kind of... they claim that they're actually almost done with that game. Like, that they're wrapping up development. Like, it's almost done. But that does feel like it has a low level of buzz, right? The first one to me felt like it had way more buzz. Like, when they were doing those, like, tech tests and stuff, like, regularly, I was seeing lots of people on forums and stuff heavily talking about that game. Neo 2, I just have not seen the same level of excitement. I'm not here to tell you that it's going to do worse than Neo 1. I don't know. But I will say, Ricardo, yeah, Neo 2 does feel a bit, softer in terms of anticipation than the original did. Elias, The Last of Us 1 was the game of the decade for a lot of websites, but a lot and most important ones. What studio do you think can compete with Naughty Dog? And do you think the sequel will be better than 1? Ooh, that is a tough question. Wow. The Last of Us 1 is either my game of the decade or it's in my top 3. My top 3 for the last decade were Red Dead Redemption 2, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and The Last of Us. Those were my 3 favorite games from the last decade. Man. So if the sequel can be better than The Last of Us 1, that'll be phenomenal. I think it looks better, but we'll see. And who can compete with them that we know of, right? Like if we're just looking at what we have right now, a decade's a long time, right? Studios can rapidly change over 10 years. But I mean, as a guess, I would say Rockstar, right? Rockstar has got to be their stiffest competition in terms of like prestige. I would say CD Projekt Red maybe, because The Witcher 3 was incredible. Let's see how Cyberpunk is. But I would say, just like I mentioned with my top 3, I think their biggest rivals in terms of like industry awards and recognition, I would say it's Rockstar and CD Projekt Red. Tony did not get notification. Lack of next gen exclusives. I did earlier, Tony. Empty and full, another great stream. Great stream. Thank you, everyone. I am going to bounce out. I've got to get ready for work right now. Thank you so much for joining the stream as always. Love doing these. We'll shoot for another one probably like next week or so. Thanks for making the stream, everyone. Have fun. Play some games. Have a great weekend. And I will see you all, hopefully next week. Have a good one, everyone.